What I was really touched by on Wednesday night was I was reminded by many people in the room of the journey that God has taken this church. And we had our anniversary just a week or two ago. God has been faithful through all those years and the different building projects that we have been part of. And this is the next step. He was very faithful through the building project when we came to this building, and there were some men there that had been involved in that. I joined the church just after that, and they were reflecting on when this was a bare space and the times before that as well in Montague Road, but when this was a bare space and they had built it out. And then, of course, 8 to 10 years ago, we went through a similar process here where we did the major renovation. But there was one bit we didn't touch, and it was this. And I think the overall feeling is it's time. It's time we addressed this auditorium and we really brought it up to standard. So there's a lot of reasons why we need to do that. One of them is a lot of stuff in here is just worn out. The air conditioning was worn out when it was put together, and we've been sticky tape and glue for the last 25 years on that, and that's a big issue for this auditorium. But there's lots of other things. Carpet's worn out, chairs are worn out. And the acoustics have always been really poor. The acoustic performance of the room has always been not up to scratch, which makes it impedes good worship to some extent. So the other thing that I wasn't aware of when we did the consultation was that our tech team have really been working hard to keep it together in terms of the technology. It's been added to and changed and patched up for 25 years. And every week they come into the place holding their breath, wondering whether it's going to fall apart that week. And that's no exaggeration. So it's time to really honour them and their work and really upgrade that as well. So the other thing is things have changed, isn't it? Online's come on board, and this room doesn't support online as well as it could, and that online experience. So that's another key part of why we need to do this. The last thing is it really stands in great contrast to the rest of the building now, doesn't it? It's just not up to scratch, and it's time, right? So we have worked very hard as a group over about 9 months now to really think through and wrestle with what it should be and what it should become and why, what are the key things? So the key principles that we've come to, and this has been the group of the leaders in the church and some others have got together and spent a lot of time. So we're looking at a series of key principles. If we want to pop them up, great. First of all, first and foremost, this is going to be a wonderful place of worship. It's got to point to Jesus and our core purpose. If we don't have that, we have nothing. That's what it's all about. The second thing is that what we do needs to reflect our values. And the Clovey values, we came down to these 3 words: earthly, relational, and authentic. So it's just that nice fine line there where we get to a really warm place without being too flashy, but really authentic. The third thing is that it's timeless, it's completely refreshed and renewed space. So timeless, it really fosters engagement and connection. It's really important that we don't have a space where people want to leave the moment the service is finished, but they want to linger and they need to feel very comfortable in that space together. It would be a great thing if we were kicking people out at 5 to 11 for the 11 o'clock service because people wanted to be there and it was warm and a great space where there was tremendous fellowship. So those are you can read the rest of them, but those are the kind of key principles we came down to. And then we thought about what would success look like. And it was encapsulated in one word, and that is one room, many rooms. So if we pop up the next, that's it, got it, we're good. So this idea of one room and many rooms. So what that means is the room itself needs to do lots of different things. It needs to support worship on a Sunday, or really help to facilitate that. But it needs to be versatile during the week. It also needs to be a space where with online, there might be this room, but lots of people participating from many rooms. So it's quite a design challenge in terms of bringing together all the different things that need to happen and all the different things that the room needs to facilitate. That can be different expressions of worship. That can be other things like funerals and weddings. One of the things on my heart is I'd love our young people don't get married here because it's not a space that's really that they want to be in for their wedding. It would be lovely, I think, if we could see weddings here again. That would be fantastic. And the reason for that is when people come back and they worship after in a place they've been married, it kind of reminds them of their wedding and their vows, or when they come to another wedding a few years later, it's a really special thing. So it would be great if the place was of a standard where people would love to get married. Just personally, we really do need to address the acoustic performance. And by that I don't just mean sound equipment and speakers. I mean the way the room performs from an acoustic perspective. And the ideal there is it gets to the point where actually we don't need to push the gear quite so hard because there's a lot more clarity, because there's a lot less reflection and all sorts of things that are happening in this room at the moment. As I said before, a really warm and inviting and comfortable place for people to be, but one that really is easy for our volunteers to work in as well, the tech team. So, what's it going to look like? There's the big reveal, if you like. What is this? What have we come up with? The first major change that we're looking at is the stage will be reoriented. So that the big pivot is that instead of the stage being in this corner here, the stage is going to be along that wall. And we're going to sort of move ourselves a little bit. And that opens up a whole lot of real benefits. It just reorients the room and makes it a lot more sensible in terms of the back doors being the back doors. It will enable us to design a stage that is a lot more functional with a flat surface on it, and will facilitate a whole lot of different creative things in a much easier way. It'll just work a lot better. It also allows for an easy extension of the stage using modules for other sorts of events. So the big design thing, to using a very popular word these days, is a pivot of the stage along the back wall. So, what does all that look like? One more before I go there. The finishes are going to reflect that warm, earthly, authentic style. And we've got a display out there and you can see the proposed finishes at this point. I would point out all of this is preliminary. All of it is subject to change and consultation. But we've got a long way to a fairly resolved design at this point in time. So you'll be able to see those proposed finishes. An example might not be the final one of the chairs we might be looking at and the colours we might be looking at. That's all out there. I'll be out there after the service, by the way, for anyone that wants to come and pore over the plans and ask questions and all those sorts of things. And a couple of the other team might be there as well. So, what's it going to look like? If we move on to a slide that will give us an idea of the sense of what it looks like. That's it. What about that handsome guy in that fantastic shirt? So he tells me that was a very special present from his children, and he's just delighted that it's on that presentation at the moment. But it is that's the sense from forward and reverse. So I think you'll agree, it's a pretty exciting design. I'm very excited by the way it's come together. There may well be some changes. It may well not be exactly that, particularly around some of the acoustic treatment around the walls. But that's the kind of thing. Can we pop back to the front view again for a minute? There you go. There's a sense of that. I just want that to sink in. There are pictures and renders of that out on that board again if you would like to look at that. But I remember when those renders were first sent through after poring over plans, which are often difficult to visualise, and I opened them up and I went, yeah, that's good. That looks really, really good. I'm very happy with that. So that's what we're proposing to do. You'll see those plywood ceiling panels serve an acoustic purpose. And one of the great things of this design is we're able to take the ceiling right out and lift it. There's about 1.5 meters of space above there. So we're able to get rid of all of that, lift the ceiling up, put all the services underneath those plywood panels in matte black and get a sense of space as well as really good acoustic performance because of that those panels. So it's a pretty significant design statement, actually quite cost effective as well. Talking about cost effective, that's the next big the $64 million question. I'm pleased to say it's not going to be $64 million. We have at this stage not finalised the cost. We have gone to what's called a quantity surveyor, which is a separate individual kind of professional from a builder to say what might this cost. And in working with them, I might say the first iteration of the quantity surveyors thing was a bit eye-watering, but in working with them and looking about what we're actually going to do and the way we're going to do it, our estimated cost is in the order of $1.25 million at this stage. That includes a 100K contingency. So that's where we're landing at this point in time. That's still to be confirmed around any other changes that might happen in design and getting some costings around the building process. How are we going to do that? Well, the really exciting news is that we already have more than a third of that cost in hand, in cash right now, which is an amazing situation to be in for any project. That's really exciting. If we add Heart for the House and an additional $50,000 from what we call depreciation, or funds that are set aside every year to do things in the building, then we will get to 70% funding. So we'll get to about close to $1 million, right? which is fantastic. So the balance as proposed will be looked at with a small loan in relative terms. I've got to say, from a faith perspective, and as I think back on the original building project, we raised in cash over 12 months as a congregation $1.8 million for that original building project. It is well within our capability as a congregation, with generous and heartfelt giving before God to pay for this with cash, in my view. And that would be my prayer, that we would be able to get there, that God would really touch our hearts and move us, and that we would be generous as we were 8 years ago now. And in fact, my view is that this congregation has greater financial capacity now than it did then. So I'm really hopeful that that will be the outcome. But those are the numbers as they sit right now. What happens from here? This is a genuine consultation process where we're really wanting feedback, and Michelle will talk about that in a minute. What happens from this consultation process is we take all that into account. We will revise whatever needs to be revised in the design and refine it, and we'll start the process of going to building approvals and all those sorts of things and getting detailed costing and all that sort of stuff. Some of that will happen in parallel with the next step, which is Heart for the House, which will happen. We'll present this finally in August again for your consideration, and September Heart for the House offering, which has been delayed that 3 months from normal. We're targeting to commence in 2023, which I feel really good about. We were hoping to do it in the second half of this year, but for a whole lot of reasons, including the way the building industry is at the moment, it feels a lot better to be doing it in the first half of next year. That'll help us to manage that a lot better. Michelle.
Thank you. I'm going to ask and thank Lee. I'm so grateful, Lee, in your leadership of the team. The team have put a lot of hours and effort into this, a lot of prayer, and it's exciting. A new refresh of an auditorium, it is a tool for the gospel. Yeah, we absolutely want everyone to know King Jesus, and this is a tool to be able to do that and facilitate that space. So let's be asking God, how do you want me to give and contribute into this next season? It's really exciting to be doing this together. So thank you so much, Lee. For those of you that are here and in the room, we want to get your feedback. And so what I would ask you to do is make a note in your phone or somehow right now, clovey.com.au/feedback, to head there after the service, or grab a form on the doors on the way out. But we want your feedback by Wednesday, July 13. It's a chance for you to feedback what you've seen and heard. So clovey.com.au/feedback to do just that.